I know that in Ghana now, for clearly obvious reasons, we are enjoying some boom with gold, and everybody is talking about we are doing very, very well. Tomorrow, when the times change, we'll see whether we'll see the same thing. But that's the nature of small open economies. The African paradox. The structure of many African economies has remained relatively unchanged in the past 50 years. There's a lot of evidence to support that. We can look at the absence of change through factor endowments, the sectoral contributions, various things that allocation of labor and so on. So we can look at what happens in the different sectors, whether it's agric, industry, services, and so on. We talk about these things as the things that we expect to see changing if any economy is properly aligned, properly reflective of what is happening in response to policy. But we haven't seen much change over there. We talk about the fact that our economies are still primary commodity producers, exporting these in very large amounts. And so whenever, as small open economies, there's some kind of shock, whether it's price or whatever, we suffer from these things. I know that in Ghana now, for clearly obvious reasons, we are enjoying some boom with gold, and everybody is talking about great. I mean, we are doing very, very well. Tomorrow, when the times change, we'll see whether we'll see the same thing. But that's the nature of small open economies. They depend on the weather, they depend on other people. So we also talk about institutional and market frameworks, land markets that are not functioning properly, infrastructure bottlenecks. These are the things that we spoke about 50 years ago. And today, they explain to a very large extent why our economies are the way they are. We talk about manufacturing. Manufacturing means that approximately 11% of GDP for many countries. It is an interesting thing in the sense that if you look at economic history, for your average economy around the world, whether in Europe or in Asia, North America, structural change often came through a movement, a shift of resources from the agriculture into manufacturing. Manufacturing was the tool or instrument, the vehicle for provide employment to large numbers of people. So earlier on, through the Industrial Revolution, we saw how change occurred in Europe. In the last 30 years, we've seen how change has occurred in Asia, how manufacturing has become the main instrument, the main vehicle for providing employment. Why has this not happened in Africa? We've seen the share of agriculture drop significantly, but we've seen people move from agriculture into low productivity services. It is simply a case of being premature deindustrialization. There are many, many things that we can talk about with respect to these structures that have not seen much change. Then we talk about the changing societies. There are many things in terms of the demography. We can talk about the youth bulge. We can talk about urbanization. We can talk about the digital connectivity, and we can talk about education attainment rising. Today, living in a village in Ghana and having a degree is not seen as a major achievement. 50 years ago, if you came from Abradunka, I've used Abradunka, that's my hometown, and you had a degree, everybody respected you. Whenever they saw you, they greeted you, yes sir, because you're the only person with a degree in town anyway. Today, everybody has a degree. But even more interesting about these changing societies is the fact that the distinction between rural and urban and so on have become a lot more confusing than before. Today, you can live in a rural part of the country and still have an urban life. When I go to Aberdeen, when I see the young men watching EPL on TV, and they live in Aberdeen, but they know what is happening in the UK. They know they watch the Premier League in the UK. They know about Manchester United and Chelsea. They don't know much about the Accra Olympics. That's the new reality of our world. That's the new reality of our world. So our societies are changing. Today, students can sit in their rooms in the server hall and order KFC and to be delivered. It will be delivered to them because It's possible to call. 50 years ago, you couldn't do that. And there was no service delivery, and so you couldn't do. So the society is changing. The food we eat is changing. Today, we eat more fried rice than we deal with yam and plantain. The young people, all they care about is fried rice and shawarma. I'm sure you're surprised that I know shawarma. Production and consumption, again, another paradox that we have to live with. A lot of the production that takes place, that's so informally. A lot of it is informal. That is the problem, in the sense that a lot of the informal things that we do are also not very productive. They are quite unproductive in the way we do them. But this is happening at the same time that the things that we consume as producers are changing. So when it comes to the consumption side, we are able to, as I said earlier, be able to order things and have them delivered, and the food we eat is changed. The type of things, the people travel easily. We are able to use mobile telephony to do transactions. So fintechs are changing. Most of the fast food that we pursue is imported. And so when it's time for us to look for even health and education, we are able to import these things. So a Ghanaian man aged about 55 has a problem with his prostate. In the past, he would have been obliged to go to Kolebu and sort it out. Today, he goes to Kolebu and they tell him what to do. Then tomorrow he flies to South Africa or he flies to India to go and deal with it. Your children go to school. They go to Achimota school. You don't like it because of free SHS. You don't like it. You can take them from there. You have a choice. You can put them at Tema International or you can send them outside. And many are doing that. So even the education that we provide is changing in the sense that the opportunities are very different. What this leads to is a more and more unequal society. Those who can send their kids abroad and are doing so are clearly giving those kids a boost that other kids will not have. In a few years, when their kids come back, if they do come back, they will be way ahead of the other kids. So the gap between the haves and the have-nots is going to increase much faster than we ever assumed. Lifestyles are changing. So as I said with my Abrodunkwa example, when you live in Abrodunkwa, in the 50 years ago, there was only one vehicle that left the town at 6 a.m. for Accra. Today, every 20 minutes, there's a vehicle coming to Accra. So you can leave Abrodunkwa early in the morning, come to do your shopping at Makola, and go back. In the good old days, if you came to Accra, you stay for 2-3 days before you went back. So things are changing. Our lifestyles are changing. And that's a very important listen. We talk about also the labor force participation by females also changing very rapidly. In the past, the man was the head of the household who earned income and then they used it to boss around everybody. Today, many households are headed by women and so on. So things are changing. So there's a change also in the way we produce, the home production and subsistence. There are many, largely linked to the gender aspects of what we're talking about. Many things are changing. So I spoke earlier about informality. And the interesting thing about informality is the fact that we are seeing some change in there also, largely a consequence of the technology that is available. We've seen how, because it is easier to obtain services by formalizing aspects of your operations, more and more people are registering their entities. In the past, they were reluctant to register them because they had to pay tax. They do see today that some of the benefits that they would acquire are far superior to what tax payments would do. So some aspects of informality are disappearing. And then, of course, you've heard about M-Pesa in Kenya. We have our own smaller versions of M-Pesa in Ghana and other places. So all of these make it easier to use the new technology to conduct transactions. And so more and more things are becoming known It is a lot easier now to tax the informal sector than it was before. What is driving this change? What is driving this change? There are two things that I highlight in this paper. The first is globalization. Globalization, here we refer to things like the trade liberalization, capital flows, and transactional operations reshaping markets. It is easy today to sit in Ghana and be able to move capital around the world, largely because of where you are, the type of technology available to you. So moving money from the UK to the US while living in Ghana is not a problem. Used to be a problem 30 years ago. Today it's not a problem. And so there are many, many Ghanaians, there are many Nigerians, there are many Kenyans and so on, who are very much a part of this new world. Trade liberalization around has made it easy for us to import things and export things if we want to. So things have changed. Migration. Migration is probably, for many parts of Africa, the biggest change we can have. Through migration, many Africans have been exposed to new cultures. Many Africans have been exposed to new opportunities. Many Africans have been exposed to different ways of doing things, producing and consuming. And as a result of that migration, they're also able to send something home. And so through that, remittances have become a major source of income for many, many households. Technology, the digital revolution, the mobile connectivity, and the financial technology, and leapfrogging legacy systems. These are all aspects of the change or the drivers of change that we are talking about. So I made a point earlier that our economies are not changing much, not as fast as our societies. The societies are changing much faster, largely because they are able to use technology in a manner that we have not been able to do in production. So that's where the problem is. The technology is there, we have access to it, but we use it for our social development. We don't use it adequately for economic development. And that's something that I thought as social scientists we should be interested in and think about.